welcome back to another episode of Masked Monologues. Today I have with me Whitney Riley. She is an author and a creative. Would you like to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do and why you started?
Hi, and thank you for having me. The creative process is so important to so many aspects of my life. I like to think of it if you had a bag, some people you would dump the bag out and a feather would just float through this sort of linear pattern. And that's the artistic process for some people. But for me, if you were to dump that bag out, it'd be like things would clink to the ground and bounce, and maybe a frog would hop away as a butterfly flew at the same time. And I've started in physics with that creative interest, moved into a painting degree. I had a moment where I saw my mortality, and I knew that if I didn't do that, I would regret it, not knowing where that would take me. And then now I weave both of those together and helping many people and creatives get past difficult things that hold them back and stifle their authentic voice.
That's a wonderful mission to be on. I'm just wondering about you have this physics background and then you combine that with an art degree. That sort of reminds me of this left brain, right brain analogy where you have analytical skills and then also your creativity. Do you believe that both of those are essential for creatives? Because I know a lot of creatives neglect to consider that analytical sort of observation aspect when creating their work, art, whatever they're doing. So I'm just wondering, since you're more of a mindset and kind of growth mindset, I don't know if you're a coach or writer, but you seem like you're an influencer, you know a lot about that area. So would you say that both of those are necessary?
For me, that's how it went. It's funny, at one point, I took this test online. I'm not sure the bigger picture
Mhm.
validity of it, but it tested what hemisphere was strongest in you. I think it was for occupational. So this is years ago.
Yes.
And I was like 51, 49. And it was really interesting. And when I started doing art and specifically this poetry class, I was in college for 10 years. And
Mhm.
after the art degree, I went back for a PhD in
Mhm.
clinical psychology, which I did not pursue after a year,
Mhm.
but it was really interesting. I felt my brain shifting. So I don't know if the requirement is there because we're each
Yeah.
sort of on our own path. And I think that's what makes art, whether it's the written word, performance, or in any way, cooking, gardening, how we see the world and then recreate that comes from, I think, how you're wired. And I
Mhm.
do believe there is some wiggle room in that because I did feel the shift the more I started studying the subjective.
And you said that you were at university for about 10 years, and part of that
Yeah.
was getting your art degree. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of transitioning from physics into art and obtaining that degree?
Yeah. Physics was like the first thing. I think the creative impulse was always in me, and I was afraid. The myth of the artist, like cutting off your ear, being
Yeah.
crazy, being that sort of. So I was like, anything but this. So physics was that first thing, and tricks on me. When
Mhm.
I was in physics for 5 years, and all I went to was like the theoretical, like there was going to be the same pattern as the art because it was math and things like that. So my dad died, and I saw my own mortality, and I knew I needed to take a painting class. I just knew it. First painting, it's like the world shifted on its axis, and I, with lots of panic and anxiety, changed my major. But I guess in the art world, you're young and you have some ideas about the world. And I put myself in a prison, and I was never going to call myself an artist until I had achieved some sort of, I know, idea about it, right?
Yes.
Which now back is just the silliest thing I could have ever done. But I think we do that to ourselves. We
Mhm.
lock ourselves out of what we already are and create struggle when it could have been fluid. I think some of my first paintings, people were offering to buy them without me even selling them.
Yes.
And even then, it wasn't enough because of my mindset, right? But so the transition was very intellectual. I was super always watching and thinking they were opposite. But I found this book. It's out of publication, but you can still find it used, and it's fascinating. And maybe your listeners, some of the listeners might resonate with this, but it's called Art and Physics. And it was written by a medical doctor who took his 8-year-old to a museum, and she started asking questions and he didn't know how to answer them. So he took his A-type personality and researched, and it starts in the caves of Lascaux, the art work they found there, and Euclid's laws of geometry. And it chronicles how art sometimes went before physics, science, or how we saw the world, and sometimes science came first. And it dialogues back and forth throughout the historical time. After Newtonian's laws, images changed because the way we understood gravity and the world around us changed. It's fascinating. So they kind of weave them together a little bit.
Yes. No, I love
Yeah.
that. Just weaving that science and that art, the creativity and the analytical skills together. We're on the topic of books here, and I know that you've published your own book. Would you mind elaborating on your book, telling us what it's all about?
Yes. So bringing all of that forward, I've always been a book person, making books and anything, like creating them in an artistic way. But now my work has taken me into helping people with their mindset, think beyond mindset, where we have hidden things in our body that we can't access through logic. Like I was just talking about, I put myself in art prison, right? Like I'm not going to be an
Yes.
artist until I see. You can't rationalize with that part of your brain, even if you understand that maybe it's not true because of the way it's stored in your body. So through kind of this, in physics, there's the quantum enigma, the whole macro micro thing we've
Yes.
been working on unifying. And in that, there is the thing where all things are possible, right? So that's how that thread comes through in the book. And it's called Make Everything Easier. And I've been working on it for 12 years. How do you create a method that is accessible to all, but open to be as unique as the person? And started working on it and testing and then doing groups and then finally putting it together in a book, which by the way is a very different experience than the creative process. It's
Yes.
more sat down at one point, I was like, oh, I can't do this. And I realized it was because I couldn't see it all at the same time, like a painting or even a
Yes.
song or a poem. And so there was a new mind shift for me to be able to trust the process and let it unfold. But the book is about that. Basically, it's about how the body keeps the score and holds things in place until we go in there and let it off the hook. And then all of a sudden, everything that was hard naturally becomes easier.
Yes. So you mentioned how it's hard for an artist to continue working on their art or continue just at their craft when they don't see the entire picture, once they can't see the final product, the end product. And I want to know, once you were writing your book and you said written a chapter here and there, you might have written a couple pages, but you didn't know how it was all going to fit together. What motivated you to continue writing the book, and what would your advice be for all artists out there, all creatives who might start something and maybe they're not getting results yet? Maybe it's going to take a year, maybe it's going to take 2 years, and they just need that encouragement that they might not be getting from their peers.
Don't give up. Breathe. Find a tool. Order this book, it'll help you, or find a tool that you resonate with and just don't give up. And look at how I didn't realize I was struggling because I couldn't see it all at the same time. I had to stay with it longer and question the impulse to freak out or believe some. I'm also dyslexic, so there I could easily be like, oh, I'm dyslexic, I can't do this, right?
Yes.
But to stay with it longer than you want to, you
Hmm.
will do something. And then the second part is it is going to be perfect enough. Get it done. Because the first line of my book is I'm here to tell you you're already perfect exactly as you are, where you are. You're
Hmm.
just looking for that next perfect step. And that'll never happen if you don't do perfect now.
Yes.
good
No,
enough.
no, I love that artists have a tendency to be perfectionists where they want to go back and fix everything, or it will even prevent them from starting a project if they know that they can't make out on paper or even as an audio, wherever, whatever your creative endeavor is, exactly what's in their mind. And there's this disconnect between what they produce and the vision in their mind. And a lot of people can be discouraged by that. And I love how you say start off with thinking everything is perfect. And then from there, that enables you to do whatever you want to do to work and test the waters a bit.
Right.
So I want to ask you now, would you say that there's a threshold where you can see results? Because I know sometimes the first 3 months or even 6 months of starting a new project, you probably won't see that much improvement. And it's not until you hit a certain threshold. Would you say that there's a threshold once your art becomes of superior quality?
Oh goodness. That one is, I think, super complex because I think some people see the value in what they're doing immediately and think it's the
Mhm.
greatest thing ever. And then 6 months later, they look back and go, oh, that's total trash.
Yes.
Where another person might do something and go, oh God, I hate that. It's horrible. There's no value in it. And then 6 months later, look at it and go, oh my gosh, why am I so hard on myself? That is beautiful, and see the innate talent. And we're all on this path. And I think the threshold is you can go to what fundamentals,
Yes.
practice, discipline, finding your way to be disciplined, right?
Mhm.
Some people it's get up at 8 o'clock and spend 3 hours writing the book or
Yes.
painting the painting. At one point, when I was doing this big project, I was sewing a room together and it was this huge installation. I realized that I went into the studio, we had open studios and people were talking, but I needed to be alone. I had to be in a non like busy hour. So I would go in around 5, say hi to everybody, drink a cup of coffee, and then everyone would start to leave and I would work all night and
Mhm.
go to bed at sometimes 4 or 5 in the morning. It was weird, but there was this real flow of process for me in that time. And it was very
Mhm.
physical, like standing up on
Yes.
ladders, sewing the room together. Writing the book was a very different process. And I think organization is key. And I learned, and funny story, first edition, wrong draft was actually published, the
Wow.
non edited.
I'm so sorry about you must have had a little shock there.
And then I was like, wow, I have amazing friends that
Mhm.
are so kind, or I
Mhm.
have friends that are great liars that haven't read the book. But the content was there. It was just, and it's actually right now still being in the process. What I love about that story is like, yeah, it could be embarrassing or it could be whatever. It's
Mhm.
just like, it was because everything is precious to me. So I kept every little edit, every draft. I'm like, oh,
Yes.
this is before I changed this. And the learning is, it's okay to let things go. It's okay. Ezra Pound, there's this story I heard somewhere along the way where he had a meeting with some famous mentor who was going to look at his poems.
Mhm.
And he's running to this meeting and a big wind comes or he trips. I can't remember what the detail is,
Mhm.
but he basically drops all of his poems in a mud puddle.
Wow.
They were all destroyed. And you
Yes.
could say, oh my gosh, was it over? Did he? No, we all know him.
Mhm.
So he went back and recreated. So
Mhm.
what you have inside of you is yours.
Yes.
And one could say maybe that was a twist of fate that
Mhm.
made it better.
Mhm.
Because in the beginning, we're trying to be like what inspires us, who influences us in
Mhm.
dialogue, and finding our unique perspective sometimes takes a little, like you said, that threshold of
Yes.
trusting. I don't know if it is a good end, but I guess in all of that, it's our story. My
Yes.
story is, yeah, I published the wrong one because everything's too precious,
Mhm.
and that tracks.
No, I love that. That's an amazing story, and just knowing that not everything has to be perfect and it's not a beginning and end all. You can always go back, revise, you can improve. And I think creatives should really heed that piece of advice and keep going because your next, whatever you do next, will always be better than what you've done, let's say 5 years ago, 2 years ago, whenever. It's
Yeah.
always going to improve if you keep working at your craft. And the one thing that you said that resonated with me was the working in an art studio up until 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. And I believe that's completely relatable for creatives. I feel as though late at night is when my creative energy just flows. I've got all these thoughts and ideas in my head. And it's so funny because you look at other workers or everyone else and they're working in the day. But would you say that just getting some time alone or just creating an environment that is conducive to a creative flow, how would you go about creating that?
So to the first part about the in the evening, I think part of it is not just even the aloneness, it's
Mhm.
the quietness of that hour.
Yes.
There's this cool, I don't know what you would even call it, but have you heard of human design at all?
No, I'm not familiar. Do you
It,
mind
it's
explaining
a
it?
yeah, no, I will. It's a roadmap to what is consistent energies in each individual person. And it's like the I Ching, astrology, and many other things that this guy channeled, and I believe Ibiza. And it's quite popular. Now people are like using it to manage companies,
Mhm.
and it's a real unfolding of who you are. Now I'm trying to link it back to where I was, but at that time, in that time, basically, like we're in a world of frustrated people. The
Mhm.
78% of the population is this type, a generator type. And when they're not self, when they're not authentic, which is most of us, because we're all trying to climb through the conditioning
Yes.
of the, to me, it's like in that installation I talked about, it was a totem of tongues, and it
Mhm.
was like crawling into your headspace. And it's like your mom, your dad, your
Mhm.
the generations
People are just
from
throwing
both of
things
them.
at you.
Right, teachers, the
Mhm.
mores of the world around you, books, TV, podcast. We're all
Yes.
there's so much information, right? And
Mhm.
cutting through, and there's frustration when it's not self. Like there is a place when we know we're not being authentic, even if we don't know how to get there, right?
Mhm.
So on the other side of the world, when we're quiet here, that there's also the energy of the frustration happening because
Mhm.
they're awake, they're toiling, they're doing their things. So I don't know. I feel like in the night, I'm connected to the bigger fabric of all of us hammering on the edge of the universe, working
Yes.
and sleeping and being. It gets a little crazy esoteric there, but that's just my take on it.
Yes.
I tend to be big picture, but yeah. So creating that space, I don't know, when you're in a world and you can't control the hours, I
Mhm.
think I did that. I worked a lot in bed. I kept channeling Descartes. I do my best work lying down,
Mhm.
drag my computer in there. I would have paper all over the place. And then when that
It's a
didn't work,
mess.
found a mess, a mad mess. As you probably, I was reading your book where you were compiling all the notes from your
Mhm.
phone and pieces. And I was like, it's a mad mess. It's so much information.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but
So,
so I just want to go back to your book. So who would you
mhm.
suggest should read the book? Is it catered towards artists specifically, or is it all types of creatives?
So the title came from all my clients saying it just got easier. And my clients range from writers to sheriffs and moms
Mhm.
and psychiatrists. It really is for anyone. And when I ask them who it's for, they say for anyone, but
Mhm.
that's a horrible marketing tool. If it's for everyone, it's no one. So that really is the problem. But in the creative vein, I would say this: it is a method that is so accessible, will follow you right where you are now and
Mhm.
open you up to the place where when you revise the sticky spot, when you're thinking, who am I revising for,
Mhm.
goes away because you start to trust who you are and why you're here to contribute what you are contributing. And it's really hard to explain because it's something that you just start to feel. One of my clients who is a painter, she's just, I trust myself now. And to be able to work like that is liberating, to
Mhm.
walk around trusting. And
Yes.
she's, I love my life.
Why do you
I don't know.
believe
It doesn't.
why do you believe that artists are hesitant to trust themselves and just go all into their work?
I don't know that all artists are. I told you my origin story of just believing I wasn't worthy of the word artist
Yes.
until what? It could be that. I think art, and we're all different, and all your
Mm-hmm.
listeners are going to be able
Mm-hmm.
to plug into this or not and in their own way. But what we do is only 50% done when we're 100% done.
Yes.
We have
Mm-hmm.
to engage the other side that we will lose control of, especially the more successful we become, right?
Yes.
You can't handle someone through the
Mm-hmm.
experience, and they're going to take it however they take it. And that is a really beautiful thing, but it's also a scary thing.
Mm-hmm.
And criticism, I think, is a big part of that, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
rejection, or just literally not being noticed.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to go back to your topic of you didn't think you were an artist even when you were fully immersed in the art. And I think just today I was looking at this quote and it says, you can do 20 paintings and you're not an artist. You can write 30 songs and you're not a singer-songwriter or a musician, but you kill one person and you're a murderer. So why
That is
is it?
awesome.
Yes. So why is it that we're unable to give ourselves that credit for doing that work and just because if you're dedicating time and you're committing to it, even just the process of you creating that art, you can consider yourself an artist.
But we don't, right? Because
Yes.
we're waiting for someone to give us that crown
Yes.
title.
Yeah. I love that. So
So
I
my son really likes the show Young Sheldon. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And he's this little kid who's a physicist. But
yes.
what's interesting, he's 10 and 11, and he says, I am a physicist. What you're saying, like he fully sees and claims it for himself. And I was just thinking about this today because then he decides to change his thing and he goes, I am now a philosopher. And
Mhm.
it's before he's even really stepped into it. He claims it.
Yes.
And to your point, why is it so hard for artists to claim it? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of stigma around like being an artist because when you think of an artist, a lot of people go back to the crazy artist stereotype or the starving artist, or there's always this portrayal of artists that might not be fully accurate. And I'm just thinking maybe that's why people are reluctant to claim it at first.
Yeah, I think that's valid. It's, are you a
Mhm.
loser? What's your
Yes.
backup plan? You can't really want to do this.
Yes.
It is. I definitely was in, and my parents were super supportive of me. So like I chose to put that on myself because of all of that. And but here's the joke's on me because if it is in you, it's in you. It's in
Yes.
you, it's yours. And people can't take it, like life can't take it away. And if you're listening to this and you're maybe wondering if it's for you or oh my gosh, the message is if it's there, it's yours. Just
Mhm.
play
Yes.
because you're like we're so unique. Well, we're never going to be created again. And that is so valuable to use your creative voice in whatever way to contribute to the dialogue.
Okay, so with that, I'd like to wrap up this episode. So if there's any social media platforms, I don't know if you have a website or the title of your book, if you want to shout out to it so our listeners can go and view it.
Sure. My website is Start Your Better Life. And if you go over to Amazon and type in Make Everything Easier by Whitney Riley, the book is there. And I'd love to answer any questions or have a conversation if you're interested.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you listeners like this podcast, you want more episodes like this, then please share with a friend or family member. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Tell me that you will stay. Treat me the right way. Always thought, love it for me, love it for me. Know that